You have her ID?
Your cell phone? No, I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to?
Because my attorney said not to.
Why do I have to give it to you? This is evidence. Evidence. She's under arrest. I have to go with. I have to go. I have to look at
You don't have that choice.
Let me help you out.
No, I have to stay. Please don't do this. Don't stay. You need to grab the bags. Take the bags. Yeah, and you need to wait outside. Okay.
My husband's almost 80 years old. He can't
Yeah,
come
I
with
can't.
me.
Please, can I help?
No, you can't join that.
Oh, don't do this, please.
Please.
Oh,
Someone's got
God.
to help him get home. This is terrible. You can't do this. This is insane.
Is that okay with you?
Please. You know, my dad with handcuffs on. She's not going anywhere. Please. Please.
Do you have anything in your pocket?
No.
Do you have anything of value in you?
No, I
Plus you have a necklace on. You
Wanna
can
go?
take the
My-
necklace
I'll
off.
take
Yeah, take it off. Yeah.
And the earrings.
And the earrings. They're
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record. Okay, how is everybody? Boy, I never get tired of that footage. Someone left me a comment like, stop playing the arrest footage. Really? Because I never get tired of it. I think I've seen it maybe, 100 times at this point? With all the episodes I've done on Donna and Co. since her airport arrest. And I never get tired of it. Hey, Gammy, 65CJ5. We'll get back to Karen Reed sometime soon. 65CJ5. Susan Hicks. McRamble, nice to see everybody. And thank you all for the nice birthday wishes. I appreciate it. It was a quiet one this year. So, what I wanted to talk about today is Donna Adelson's defense, the blame Katie McManaway, the temptress, the half a breastress. Of course, said she was given half a boob job by Charlie Adelson. The temptress, the extortionist, according to Charlie Adelson, why it was such a loser defense in Charlie's trial and why it won't work for Donna. And we hadn't really known what Donna's defense was going to be. We thought that maybe when she had Rashbaum as her lawyer, that it would be something like the Charlie Adelson 2.0 extortion defense. Well, I was just told what Charlie told me, and I didn't want to go to law enforcement after the bump, which if you don't know, for those coming in late to this case, the bump is, you saw in the beginning where law enforcement got them all talking by saying that one of the getaway driver in this case, is that right? Was wanting to be taken care of. And that they already knew that they were taking care of, blah, blah, blah. He needed to be taken care of. And they wanted this amount of money. And it started a lot of talking between conspirators, which was the point, to get them talking. So why Donna never went to law enforcement after the bump Well, she was just protecting her son who was being extorted by his ex-girlfriend, meaning, let us not forget. And Court TV immediately rushes to put out an episode where the Adelsons extorted. Could this possibly be true after Donna's really explosive? I think it's like a slow-moving bomb that's going to move through the true crime community. That was a shocker. Her recent hearing where she says, I have 2 women who are in jail with me, and they're saying that Katie was in here talking all about how she extorted the Adelsons. But let's look at those comments one by one and how they go in order of how Donna presented them in her hearing. And it was curious to me that Donna was doing very well in her hearing when the lawyer asked all the questions and all she had to say was yes or no. When she had to get specific about the statements after Georgia Kappelman objected and said, look, the lawyer's not essentially the lawyer's not testifying. They don't know they didn't hear what these inmates said to Donna in the Leon County Jail. Donna has to testify as to what she was told were Katie's statements. So she wants these inmates to testify, and she wanted to preserve their testimony in a deposition to be used at trial. But that failed. Judge Everett put the squash down on them, and one of them went up in front of Judge Everett. So he's familiar with at least one of these women. I wonder if he put the pieces together, but here are the statements that Donna made in the order that she made them. So the first one is to Cassidy Conroy. She's there at the bottom. That's one of her many, many mugshots. So this is what Donna said. She said, wait till I come back. I'm going to take care of that family. Wait until they see what they're going to get, and I'm going to get a reduced sentence. So could this have been when she was awaiting testifying at trial? Or she knew she was going to come back and testify in trial? That she has to be angry at the Adelson family because, in my opinion, I know they've denied this. There's been an in-camera, meaning secret, hearing about who paid for Katie McBanoa's defense. I still don't believe that her family could afford the kind of 2-trial defense, multi-lawyer defense that she had. But okay, she denies it. She said she wanted nothing to do with the Adelson family. But I'm here to show you today that really the problem with Katie is that she was beholden to the Adelson family. Why? Not sure. Because if you listen to another prison snitch, he claims that Sigfredo Garcia was trying to tell Katie to take a deal, turn against the family, do whatever she had to do to save herself. And her story about, well, I couldn't testify against Charlie because it meant testifying against Sigfredo, and I really had to save the father of my children. He was caught on tape. Katie McBanoa, what do you think you're going to do to save him? Am I getting too far ahead of everybody? This is really like a episode for people who are really caught up on the Adelsons. So when she testified against Charlie, her reason for changing her story is that the truth had to come out, but she's really looking for a sentence reduction after being offered immunity in this case. Had she turned originally and listened to Sigfredo Garcia, she could have walked right out of jail. And in her proffers, she's still not telling everything she knows. So what is this vague statement? I'm going to take care of that family. What does that mean? That sounds like someone has a plan to extort someone, or a plan to really light the family on fire with the truth, maybe at trial. That doesn't say that she was extorting Charlie. None of these statements show that she was extorting Charlie. She said, had her plan work? Well, what's the plan? Was the plan her defense? She said, had her plan worked, she would not be where she is. She would be sitting pretty in Hawaii drinking a fancy drink. This is Brittany Purcell, who, by the way, I missed it. Not only her last time in Leon County Jail was not, she got out, she came back in on 1/17/25. So I don't think they're going to have any problem finding Brittany Purcell. She seems to go in and out of that Leon County Jail. So after she dealt with giving a false name to an police officer, seems like twice, she got controlled substances, hooked up, busted for controlled substances on I think it's the 17th of this year. So they will have no trouble finding her. That was the point of trying to preserve Ms. Purcell's testimony, was they were afraid they wouldn't know where to find her. Well, the easiest place to look for Brittany Purcell is in the Leon County Jail. She's a frequent flyer there. Okay, here's Donna again. She made it very clear she was blackmailing Charlie, my son. How so? Don't know. That's useless. I guess I should have been prepared. I didn't know I was going to be asked. I'm just a little nervous right now. But she spoke about a tattoo that Kay had and about a tattoo of child's father had of her, meaning Katie, with a machine gun. What does that have to do with anything? This is her get out of jail free card, or get out of prison, or get out of a life sentence free card. It's a terrible hand she has here. And everyone thought that Katie was going to be such a terrible witness at Charlie's trial. This is what all the legal talking heads were saying. Why is Georgia Kappelman bringing Katie McBanoa up? She already testified in 2 trials that she had nothing to do with this. This could help Charlie Adelson. But let's take a look at what actually happened when the time came for Katie to testify. She was, in fact, quite a strong witness.
The witness may be seated. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
You may take your seat. Please speak loudly and clearly.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, please say your name and spell your name.
Catherine Magbanua, KATHERINE MAGBANUA.
I see that you're in jail clothes. Are you currently in custody?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you in custody for?
The murder?
Are you doing a sentence for murder?
Yes, ma'am.
You were convicted of murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that the murder?
So here's where I get stuck. Why isn't Katie telling the whole truth? And I get stuck in between some strange devotion to Charlie Adelson and the Adelson family and not wanting to own up to her part. And you can see when she was asked what she's in here, therefore, her whole voice changes. She kind of sits back a little bit, a murder. But until she tells everything she knows, she's not going to get the deal that she really wants. Her proffer was pretty much useless. And I'm curious, should these Brittany Purcell and prison snitches of Donna come in, Brittany Purcell and Cassidy Conroy come in, I'd love to see Katie stick up and defend what she said if she ever said anything remotely like this. But it doesn't make sense. I'm going to get that family. And let me just note one more thing. Hold on one second. Just wanted you guys to pay attention to the language here that's curious in one of these statements. Here's this one. Had her plan worked, she would not be where she is. She would be sitting pretty in Hawaii drinking a fancy drink. Does anybody remember when Donna Adelson was pointing the finger at the Leon County staff, saying that they were ridiculing her and calling her the fancy lady? Isn't this curious that once again, their Adelson PR piece was that it was fanciful fiction. Then when she got into Leon County, she was the fancy lady. And now she would be drinking a fancy drink in Hawaii. I've said before, and I'll say it again, Donna Adelson needs a new scriptwriter. Her dialogue is not believable.
Murder of Dan Markell.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a trial in your case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you testify?
Yes, ma'am.
You testified on your own behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And when you testified, were you truthful with the jury?
No, ma'am. I was not.
Did you take the same oath that you just took today in your own trial?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your defense when you were tried?
That I had nothing to do with it.
All right.
Wow. If anybody covered or watched, I think so, watched the tiny little episode I did on the ASAP Rocky case, talking about the worst prosecution witness of all time. Look how strong Katie comes across. She represents well. She expresses herself well. And for the most part, I find her a pretty strong witness. Combined with all the other evidence in the case, using Occam's razor, and when she's confronted about why she would do this, she's like, it doesn't even make sense that I would extort them. Where would Sigfredo and Luis Rivera get this information? And Georgia Kappelman says, well, maybe on the internet. She's like, these guys aren't on the internet looking up where to do a hit on spec, take someone's life on spec and maybe get some money before they possibly could get arrested and get a lifelong prison sentence, travel miles to a different city to do a hit. It doesn't make any sense. And yet, thanks, B Rabbit. Best wishes to you, Roberta. Every day you stream is a better day. We appreciate you. That's so kind. Thank you, B Rabbit. Hey, Allison. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the birthday wishes. Shelly F. Thanks for the super sticker. 65 CJ5. Happy birthday. Don't spend it all in one place. I won't. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. She said, well, these guys aren't doing this. I mean, I think Charlie thought if he had an excuse for everything, that the jury could buy it. All you need is a story for everything and a reason why, and they'll buy it. Not so, Charlie Adelson. Not so.
Right. That we got it right in reference to Charlie Adelson, and we got it right in reference to the killers,
Yes,
but you
ma'am.
weren't in the middle.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that true?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Were you in the middle?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And didn't you also testify in the trial in which Sigfredo Garcia was convicted of murder?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And what was his defense?
That he had nothing to do with it.
That we got it right in reference to Charlie Adelson and we got it right in reference to the killers, but he had nothing to do with it,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Objection, Your Honor. Read.
Overruled, Ms. Kellerman, make sure you use that in questions.
And was that defense truthful?
No, ma'am, it was not.
So Sigfredo Garcia was involved.
Yes, ma'am, he was.
So why tell the truth now?
I believe that the truth needed to come out now so that the family can get some type of closure.
Why didn't the truth need to come out last year or the year before or the year before that?
I was trying to defend myself.
You were trying to get off.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you think you'd be successful in your trial with that defense?
I thought so.
Has anyone promised you anything for your testimony?
Also, many people point the finger at Tara Kawas, who was her lawyer, having a very motherly relationship with Katie and being sort of a surrogate mother to her, and possibly could have convinced her that she could get away with this. But some of my interest in this case is really the theme of rich people using poor people and thinking that they're expendable, that they don't matter. It doesn't matter. What are they going to do with their lives anyway? Better just toss them in prison if they don't get themselves in there already. I mean, that seems to be Donna Adelson's thought, that they're to be bought and used and will do anything for money. And terrible. I mean, Sigfredo knew. He's like, I'm caught on tape. What are you going to do? Katie, testify. And we'll get to the snitch who told the behind the scenes story of Sigfredo saying all that in a second. But she comes across well, I think. And up against Donna, I think she'll do just as well. And Donna's lawyers, they can't get any more harsh across. If they tried, then rash bounds. Didn't work. It's not going to work. And let's just go forward to where she's talking about all the code words in this case. Look, there's her with Wendy, her relationship with Wendy. There's another relationship with, I mean, she was so enmeshed in this family. And you could even argue wanted to be part of this family. She thought her part would never come up in this. But let's just get into the code words.
Very well. You can go ahead and make those notes.
Maybe if I can borrow a Sharpie from the clerk. Yeah. Can I publish?
You may.
All right, so the first one we have is $65.70. And again, Jeri hasn't heard these calls yet, but when you were talking to Sigfredo Garcia about $65.70, were you referring to the undercover phone number?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Okay. And then when you're talking to Charlie about an agent, were you talking about, it seems like you're talking about real estate agent, but are you talking about the undercover agent that approached his mother?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Right. And the CD, was that reference to a recording that the Adelsons made of their contact with the undercover?
A recording of their contact with them?
Yes.
That they were being recorded?
No, that they called undercover. phone
Yes, ma'am.
number and recorded it.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever actually hear that recording?
No, ma'am, not until my trial.
I mean, just because someone lies about when they're on trial for most people lie. Can we get rid of this? They always, they always maintain their innocence. Most people maintain their innocence when faced with a long prison sentence. I don't know why the press keeps putting it in news stories like it's so remarkable. It's more remarkable when they come up and say, I did it, and take a deal. Most people lie, even on the stand. You could see when Katie testified, she hated it, was uncomfortable, and couldn't wait to get off the stand, their trial.
And then the client, there's a lot of discussion about this client or this tenant. You need to find out if this is going to be a good tenant or a bad tenant.
Yes, ma'am.
Was the tenant this person, if it really was a blackmailer, this thug that's somehow affiliated with Rivera?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the false.
And here's the part of Charlie Adelson would have to explain this to me. I still don't understand fully his defense that he knew Katie was the blackmailer at this time, but not this time. How it never made sense to me. His defense. Because it doesn't make sense why you'd be going back and forth over who this undercover is and if they're an undercover or if they're a real person connected to Luis Rivera. Right? Doesn't make sense.
Lead or the fishing. What did that mean? There's a lot of discussion about, I hope it's just somebody fishing. Do you remember that?
From the phone calls?
Yes, this is all from the phone call.
Yes, ma'am.
It was one of the two scenarios that it could be law enforcement.
Yes, ma'am. But this was Charlie basically saying this the whole time. He's the one who's coming up with all the scenarios.
Okay, but when he's talking about the scenarios, he's talking about fishing.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
doesn't say law enforcement fishing.
No, ma'am.
He says it could be, a tenant or a patient or something like that.
Anything but what?
Judge, I'm just going to object to the leading.
Please rephrase your question. Ms. Kappelman, sustained.
About the listing or the properties, what did that refer to?
About the paperwork. It's pretty
Like,
accurate.
looking into a listing.
Yes, the listing, because I worked in a real estate agency at that time. So he was just telling me, look into the listing. Oh, this will be a good investment. So it was really Charlie saying all these words.
What did the good and what might the good of, can't talk, what might the good investment have been?
If he had a good lead.
If it was a blackmailer that
Yes.
you could pay off.
Yes, ma'am.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. All right, we talked about the two scenarios. The paperwork, what was that?
That was the,
Here's the other problem is that Katie was on the Adelson payroll, and guess who signed the checks? Donna. Anybody remember these pictures? The Adelson behind the scenes of there's Donna. There's no pictures of Katie working there, strangely. Here's the Adelson crew. No pictures of Katie. What did you think you were paying money to Katie for? Oh, for the extortion? You put her on the payroll? You put the extortionist on the payroll? So what's curious to me about this case is why there's not more Adelson support out there. Because it is a circumstantial case. It's just a lot of circumstantial evidence. Shows you how strong these kind of cases are. Where's the Adelson support group?
Paper that was handed to his mom by the undercover.
On the Dolce restaurant meeting, we see Charlie Adelson pull out a piece of paper. Was
Yes,
that the actual piece of paper that was handed to his mother?
I believe so. I just never saw it. He never showed it to me.
Okay. Did he give you a phone number off of that piece of
He
paper?
did. That was that phone number that we just can't seem to get right.
Yes,
The 6570.
okay.
So just to show you what kind of, I just want to show you her in cross with Rashbaum. So she's an excellent witness. And I think she'll be an excellent witness in Donna's case as well. But here she is with Rashbaum, and you can see how she is unmoved, unpushed, stands her ground up against a really pretty strong cross.
Proffers as well.
Okay.
But let's talk about the testimony in your first trial. You were asked, did you get the father of your children, Mr. Garcia, to commit a murder on behalf of Mr. Charlie Adelson? Answer, no, ma'am. Do you recall saying that?
Yes, sir.
You were asked, do you have information that Charlie Adelson was involved in this? Answer, do I have information? I don't have personal information. Do you recall that?
No, sir, I do not.
You don't recall saying that in your first trial?
No, sir, I do not.
Would you like to see a transcript of
Yes,
it?
I will.
Please read to yourself, ma'am.
Does that refresh your recollection that that's
Yes.
what you said?
Yes, sir, it does.
During your second trial, do you recall being...
Charlie Adelson looks the way he always does, about like he's about to throw up. We know that this is a family of weak stomachs. Always about, I think a whiter shade of pale could have been written about him. Always a little yellow, a little white, looking sick to his stomach through most of it. But here he thinks that Katie's going to get destroyed. Must have been very disappointed.
being asked, Charlie didn't ask you to do anything weird? Answer, no, ma'am. Like get someone to get a hitman to commit a murder of his ex-brother-in-law? No, ma'am. Do you recall those questions and that answer?
Yes, sir, I do.
Because you couldn't implicate Charlie, you went to trial, and the first trial hung. Isn't that the case?
Yes, sir.
A few weeks before your second trial, Charlie was arrested. Isn't that the case?
Yes, sir.
The state waited and waited and waited for you to cooperate, and then they arrested him on the eve of your trial when you made it clear you weren't going to cooperate, right?
Yes, sir.
So you went to trial the second time, and this time you were convicted.
Yes, sir.
And you were convicted of first-degree murder and other charges, right?
Yes.
Right, and I've been through the whole back and forth with the Charlie's lawyer right around that time, saying if you pick up, let me know if Katie's picked up. Tammie, thanks so much. Wow, thank you guys for all the very generous super chats. The question I have are too many. Roberta, happy birthday. Thanks for the truth. you bring to these wild cases. Oh, Gizmo, that's Tammie's most amazing cat. And I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
A few weeks after your conviction, you were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus another 30 years. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And you were transferred from the jail in Leon County to the state prison where you would spend the rest of your life, right?
Yes, sir.
Away from your family,
Yes, sir.
away from your children.
Yes, sir.
And you realize that there are only two ways to get out of that prison, right?
So my mom works with people. She's a volunteer at the jail. She works with people facing sometimes, long sentences. And the soft spot is always that they've been taken away from the people they love, their friends, their family, their children. And so Rashbaum is trying to really hit her where she hurts, where it hurts, with her children. She'll never see her family again. The only way she can get out is in a pine box. And she had to do this to shorten her sentence. But I think that any thinking jury would say they really looked at the whole of the case. Why is she being so beholden when she says, well, I had to do this to protect I couldn't give up the father of my children. Well, we all knew he was getting convicted. Got convicted the first trial. You still went up for the second trial and lied. I think it's really that she can't talk about all of her part totally. I think some of her ego, and I think she's still beholden to the Adelson family. Because boy, did she have a fuzzy memory in her proffers. Did anybody remember those, her proffers? She said Charlie said his whole family didn't know, but every time that he got on the phone, he walked on with his mom, he walked away. But strangely, Sigfredo Garcia knew exactly what was going on and that the mother was paying them. We'll get to that in a minute. That's thanks to a prison snitch. So strangely, everyone knows that this goes back to the Adelson family.
What are the two ways?
Well, one way was in a coffin, right?
Yes, sir.
And the other way was cooperating against Charlie Adelson, right?
No, sir. I wanted the truth to finally come out.
What are the only two ways that you can ever get out of prison, Miss Magbanua?
My appeal?
Oh, well, we'll get to that too. You have an appeal pending right now, right?
Yes, sir.
That claims that you're innocent.
Yes, sir.
Let's just make this clear to the jury. Ms. Kappelman has called you as a witness against this man who's presumed innocent. You've just testified that you did a murder, and you have an appeal pending right now in this county claiming your innocence. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
And lo and behold, weeks after you were convicted and sentenced to life with no parole, you went in and met with the state, right?
Yes, sir.
And you met with them not once, but twice.
Yes, sir.
And you met with them for hours.
Yes, sir.
A combined total of around 6 hours, right?
Yes, sir.
I love this. This isn't landing the way he hopes it's landing. It's a great point, though. It's a great point to pick up. You still have an appeal. Well, she must not have much faith in her appeal. She's hoping to get out on some kind of trial technicality. She knows, she's smart enough to know she doesn't have a chance. with their appeal. But this is, you met for hours with the state. When you were really the woman behind all this, you had the great idea to get to get the gang members to do a hit on Spec. I mean, it's so comical. Who could think of this kind of defense? Why is Donna going this way? I mean, is this the only way you can go with this case? Blame it on Katie defense? Is there, I mean, can you guys think of another way to go to defend Donna?
Now, we're going to get into that and all the lies that Ms. Kappelman didn't go through with you that you made during those interviews, but let's go back to the first trials first, okay? In each of those trials, you took the stand for your own defense, right?
Yes, sir.
And you took the same oath and looked at different jurors the same way that you look today, right?
Yes, sir.
I see the great Sonny Tanner in the in the courtroom. She's been a guest on the show watching this. Very, very empty courtroom for such exciting testimony, huh? Be curious to see who shows up for Donna's trial.
And in your second trial, not only did you take an oath in this room, but isn't it true that you tried to get Sigfredo to lie for you?
No, sir, I did not.
Isn't it true that you were caught on a recording in the prison in which you were going to have Sigfredo Garcia come into your trial, your second trial, and say that he did the murder with Charlie Adelson all by himself?
No, sir.
You never were on a recording of
Never
that
said
fact.
that.
Your plan at your second trial wasn't to have Sigfredo Garcia testify on your behalf?
No, sir.
Are you aware that your lawyer opened up on that plan
No,
in
sir,
her
I'm not
opening?
aware. No.
Well, did you sit through the trial?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you sit through the trial when she said to the jury, you're going to hear from Sigfredo Garcia, who's going to say that the murder was between him and Charlie Adelson, and that you're just a victim of having bad taste in men?
He never came up.
He refused to come and testify, right?
I don't know if he refused. He was never called.
Are you aware that you and your lawyer subpoenaed him to come down to Leon County to testify on your behalf?
He was subpoenaed, but he just never showed up.
And he didn't show.
Right. I mean, so why didn't he show up? Let's get to this. Let's get to this episode at about 18 minutes in. So this is a snitch, another prison snitch called Nicholas Atteridge. It may be a little echoey because this is my own episode. But he testified that Sigfredo opened up about his part in this and that he was very angry that they got Luis Rivera as a state witness because he didn't know anything, which I found at the time and still do hilarious, that the guy, the getaway driver who witnessed the whole thing from the car didn't know anything. Not to get morbid, but what is there to know? You witnessed it. You were a part of it. You were there for the whole trip. So, and you were there for the practice trips up there going. So there may have been someone in the place of Luis on one of those trips, Luis Rivera. It's a possibility. So what I'm saying is Nicholas Atteridge got nothing for his testimony to Special Agent Pat Sanford. The tables down on the floor and there are tiers. So it's like maybe an octagon type shape. And there's different levels and it's all facing inward like a pod.
Correct.
well as his delight. Sorry, guys. I don't know what I did there. That was my fault. I was trying to make sure I was sharing the right thing. A little bit like Oz, where all the in the middle or like maybe an ox. Whoa, what am I doing today?
About what caused he and Rivera to commit this crime to begin with?
He not necessarily caused, like he was in dire financial straits and had to stoop to murder for hire to put food on the table, but that Katie came to him with it, and it had come from Katie's. I don't understand how the love triangle works, but he said Katie's ex-boyfriend's mom was going to pay them to go up and murder Merkel with Raquel. And
strangely, the snitch is getting every piece of information right in this case. Katie's ex-boyfriend's mom, and it's not Sigfredo. I mean, Charlie Adelson's mom. So he's pointing the finger at Donna. He's going to pay them. That the money is coming right from the mom. I think it was all the Adelson's money, frankly. Wendy, just the way that they wanted, same way they were going to entice Dan Markel by paying him $1 million, and they changed their mind on that. That this came from all of them, but the leading force, who's seen as the leading force in this, who's seen as the payer, who washed the money and delivered it? Well, Donna and Harvey, not Charlie. So there he is. I mean, very damning from Nicholas Atteridge, who sadly seems to have passed in 2021. He was in the same pod as Sigfredo Garcia. And these are all Sigfredo Garcia's admissions in jail that he's to Nicholas.
Like I said, he didn't say there's any cause for it, but I assume for the right price, when you have someone like that with, a skewed set of morals, for the right price, anything, make that happen.
So the motivation came from someone in this family?
Correct. Yeah, financial, I would assume.
Right, but the financial motivation that was provided came from Katie's boyfriend's mother. Is that what I understand? Is what he told you?
Yes.
So he had knowledge that this was from this Adelson woman that was related, that was the mother of her ex-boyfriend, Katie's ex-boyfriend.
Correct. He said she'd be footing the bill.
Footing the bill.
Right.
Did he make any other characterizations of her or anybody else in the family?
Said she's an evil woman or an evil person. He called her evil.
Did he portray to you that he had any direct contact with this evil person, evil woman?
No, not that.
Here's a guy in a jail pod with some of the worst of the worst. And he's calling Donna Adelson, I believe that's her high school yearbook picture, the worst of the worst. That's something. That says something. And you would have to be pretty evil. Someone said to me, who follows this case, I think Starkwork, I believe it is, said to me, I was thinking about this case, not even Manson killed his own family member or called the head. I know true crime purists will say Manson didn't kill anybody, but he certainly called the head out on certain people. So that'll say something. That Sigfredo, being among the worst of the worst, is saying that Donna's evil.
I recall.
So Katie brought this to him and told him that it was coming from this Adelson family?
Yes.
On the second episode where she was arrested and he got drunk, as you said, did he provide any more insight as to motivation by this family to do this?
No more motivation than the money for hire type, which you talk about. Not that it was a favor or a request from a loved one. It was just she was getting paid to go to Tallahassee, murder Mikkel.
Where did he say he was from, or where did this all stem from? What location?
Miami.
Right. Does
Isn't it interesting, though, that Luis Rivera knew about wanting the kids, that it was over the kids? So everybody gets a little different part of the story, right? But earlier in this, he said he was getting the message any way he could to Katie, the snitch says in this, to tell her to do whatever she had, make a deal, but go against the Adelsons. Why didn't she go against the Adelsons? My thought is they were paying for her defense. And he had also brainwashed her. And if you listen to her testimony, she said that the way Katie describes it is that Charlie put it in her head, put this in her head, put that in her head, that they would all get away with it if they all stayed quiet. And the way that these things break down is someone talks. Well, Luis Rivera beat you to it, guys. He talked. And it all goes back to the Adelson family. So good luck. Good luck, Donna, with your snitches. But this is a terrible, terrible, terrible defense. And you would think with better lawyers that she would be doing better. I mean, that's where I'm going to leave it for today, guys. That's what I have for today. This is a loser defense, in my opinion. And we keep hearing these things. Is Wendy going to get arrested? Is Wendy going to get arrested? When's Wendy going to get arrested? I understand how we're all anxious because, of course, she profited the most. And it's hard to see a mother of two be raised, the two children be raised by the mother who's an unindicted co-conspirator in this case. But I believe we have to wait till end of Donna's trial to see if they're even going to move forward. If Donna's trial is not successful, now she has had a bit of good fortune thrown her way by Charlie. Many of you were saying in the comments from last episode, I think this was all set up that Charlie would say he would testify and it would throw the whole trial into, I don't think he could have known, upheaval, and Donna would have to get a new lawyer other than Rashbaum. I don't believe that was set up. I believe that was real. I believe Donna would do anything to keep Rashbaum. She has infinite faith in him. But I think we have to wait to see if they're successful with Donna's trial to go forward with a possible, I think Wendy's case is going to be the hardest. And they have all sorts of issues with her testimony being given limited immunity. They have to prove that they didn't use any of her testimony in any of these trials related to Dan Markel's murder against her or as a spring-off point as an investigation. What I'm most curious about is Wendy's friend, I've done episodes on this, who's come forward with information about Wendy, who turned on her, who's also a lawyer, went to the prosecution. I'm most curious about what the substance of that evidence is, but we will have to wait and see. This is probably one of the longer waits to justice. That's not a cold case. Certainly went cold for years before before the Adelson family, actually, I don't think it went cold, but really we fully saw justice, and the Adelson family started to get snapped up and tried in this case. And Wendy's the last ring. I don't think that they'll do Harvey. My understanding is that Harvey, what I've heard is that Harvey is in a bad shape and is absolutely not doing well, with his wife in jail, his son in prison, and a daughter that doesn't talk to him, and another son, that Robert, the eldest, who doesn't talk to any of them, because after Dan Markel's murder, none of the Adelson family were curious about who did it. The rest of the Adelson family. Strangely, Robert, the one left out of the scheme, was the only one who wanted to solve Dan Markel's murder. He thought that was curious. So I'm curious to hear Robert Adelson testify, and I'm curious to see if Wendy's friend will testify, her lawyer friend whose ex-friend will testify or not, or what the substance of that evidence is. Those are the things I'm most curious about. We're going to have to wait till June to find out. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at 6. Thanks so much for listening.
What a stitch you're in. You plotted a murder 'cause you wanted to raise your daughter's kid. Tallahassee is just a stop on the way to civilization. Miami is where all the fancy people are. The TV is a Power 5. You can't get away from that. Two-toe, tay-toe, hoo-ho, you know the guy you pay, and you can't get away from that. Oh, Donna, what a stitch you're in. You thought jail was just for the little people, but now you're so blankets with the locked-up crew. You're a grandmother in lockdown, and your one-way ride to freedom you blew. What a stitch you're in. Your family are exiled from the social circles you swam in. We all know you never made that banana bread or offered to babysit for Dan, but you'll soon be making license plates and thinking about what could have been. Oh, Donna, you had to plan